We're on 14 platforms, so we got to let them all hook up. Let's see. Okay, so welcome everybody on the replay because the people on the live aren't here yet. We've got the beautiful, beloved, brave, ballsy Marina Jacobi in the house. She's been putting it out there for a long time. If you haven't gone to her YouTube, you need to take a look at it. We'll talk about that before we get off. It's called the Harmonic Reactor, and she puts out a consistent flow of videos, free, with vital information, a lot like, in my opinion, a lot like Franco de Nicola, very uncharged, very much from the higher perspective, very informative, instructive. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today, and whatever the hell else is going on in this shared collective realm, this experience that we have. Right now, I'm going to put on the intro real quick so we can allow people time to come in. Welcome everybody from Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, and all the Facebook platforms. We'll be back in a minute and 19 seconds. Welcome everybody to the front line of the apocalypse, the great unveiling. This is a great week. We've got a powerful week this week. I just want to say real quick, we just had Kalina, Malnar, and William Melchizedek on. We got Marina and Jacobi on. We're going to talk about that in a second and talk with her. Melissa Ford tomorrow, Vince Keaton, Alicia Power. David Icke is on Wednesday, and so is Sandra Walter, Marie Batchelor, and then Grace Solaris and Ryan, Franco de Nicola, Yvonne Bartholomews, and Jen Lemuri, the dolphin guy. Bunch of shows, very versatile, very various type of programming and conversations this week. It's all about the real-time intel. And I want to talk to, I love Marina Jacobi. She always makes me laugh, and she calls me Charlie. But I'm just kidding. But and congratulations on your new move for you and your family. And I'm really happy to hear that. It looks like a really powerful portal that you've created for yourself there. I want to talk about real quick. You do a consistent series of videos on YouTube and other platforms, and the information is very, very interesting and very vital, very informative, very instructive. And I don't get to watch a lot of stuff. I have to skim through stuff, but you just put one out, which I think is so appropriate for what's going on right now, because obviously there's a lot more chaos in the mix. There's a lot more projection and a lot more polarization. People are being triggered, and this is what it's all about. By the way, folks, that is the Great Awakening. It's not about what's going on out there. It's about what's going on within yourself. And in this last video that Marina put up, it's on YouTube at Harmonic Reactor if you want to watch the whole thing. It's called Have Faith. You are the quantum field. She talks about how negative consciousness works and how you can hold your frequency, vibration, and shift through the timeline matrix to a positive reality. I love it because, and I listened to about 40 minutes of it. I love it because it's about self-empowerment, self-realization, and being a conscious co-creator. If we could just go back to this video. I know you just did it a day or two ago. Your essence, your energy has always been very powerful. But to me, watching this one, I guess I want to ask you, have you just gone through a shift, as so many people have toward the end of this year? I mean, like, I don't know, there's something about your delivery on that video that was, to me, different. I could be wrong, but it just seemed different. It was more powerful than even the powerful ones before, and it was just so down to earth too. Having all that multidimensional knowledge and wisdom, and you're sharing it, but at the same time, you came through as a divine human being to me. So, was there anything different about this one?
Well, hello everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Ted. Okay. Um,
uh,
I think I go by the flow. I was told to go by the flow. Depending of how I feel, what I download, what are the messages, I express myself based on that because I try to be authentic as possible to the truth because the truth will set you free. And if we are honest with each other and go through the heart in the name of humanity with compassion, that truth and that energy emanates to everybody. And I'm trying to actually be the power that I am so I can show what is possible. I know to be powerful is actually a blessing. So don't take it as something that you should hide from yourself. Actually, you should express it as much as you can so other people can be empowered by you. And if they wish to do so, they can follow your wisdoms. However, it was necessary for me to deliver it in a way because of the time that we are experiencing right now. A lot of people are completely disempowered by the misinformation of the mainstream social media. They're being completely manipulated. And the problem with this is if you really know the quantum structure and how all the metaphysics of the alchemy of creation works, at the moment you are somebody, for example, manipulates and shift you your emotion thoughts, and in turn you taking actions through fear, you are actually shifting yourself to a negative timeline where the archon structure exists. Even if you, for example, collapse realities, you can study this in Quantum Manifestation Season 1 by mobilizing structures and how everything is collapsing. So you have a true probability positive outcome. If you end up in a positive outcome, because everything in consciousness is in fractal, they can actually, the negative psyche, hijack that and switch it in a negative. And you, as a consciousness, when you know the quantum structure of the alchemy, how everything works, you have to keep reversing it and switching everything to the positive, even when you see the chaotic situation that just happened in Washington, D.C. That was a, we know, complete manipulation, deception, but at the same time the good guys end up basically there were certain stuff that disappeared from Washington DC because they were using that platform so they can gain something. So the battle is not between this country or that country. The battle is between good and evil, and this is between survival and extinction. Is that important? For I'm sorry, this is not the time for you to be in neutrality. This is the time for you to pick up a side. And really the reason why you need to pick up a side, because you have to collapse the reality of the fluctuation between positive and negative into a positive. You cannot be just, oh, I don't care, or if something happens, you have to take the action because you are the structure and you projecting everything, is nobody outside of you. So you cannot just sit and bite your nails by waiting somebody else to do the job while you're hiding behind the bushes. This is not going to be the case here. You have to pick up a side. There's no middle ground. And is the good and the evil side here. So if you're really smart and if you really did your research through the alternative media, especially the way you find this out when something doesn't make sense to you, the ways with the mask, you go in the restaurant with the mask, but when you sit in the table, you can take it because at that particular moment, the virus is not around. I mean, it literally doesn't make sense. Things like this, you have to pay attention, and that will actually have to lead you to search for the truth. And it takes a bravery to find the truth, because when you find and you discover that you're being completely manipulated, can you hold the the truth of what you're going to discover, and you have to be able to transform it. And that transformation from manipulation, so you can go through and really find new ways of existence, is what is necessary for everybody. So that is why I wanted to explain to everybody in my last webinar, which was the Saturday, the 9th of January, what is happening in the field and what is the negative structure do, and how we were hijacked as a consciousness, because our real vessel, the biggest technology in the planet, is the human body. The human body can mutate, transform frequency of vibrations, because you're actually projection of holographic magnetic and gravitational field that holds vibration in specific location and becomes like a matter. In actuality, you're just a frequency that is dense frequency, and you can switch the frequency of the resonances the way you wish to by consciousness and shift to completely different realities. That is why somebody is using your energetic field as a parasite, so they can live off your energetic source, the way it was in the Matrix with Keanu Reeves. A lot of truth is that that should be a part of documentary for everybody. What was really happening. So negative consciousness can open portals. So you open a portal towards negative consciousness, overtook your body and consciousness, and you completely off disengage with compassion and everything else. You become like robotic for survival, and it has absolutely no recognition for the human soul. And this is why they wanted to completely, the negative wanted to completely destroy the human body, and to do literally a genocide for humanity, because we couldn't be controlled anymore, and they needed a lot less people to control. Never mind to the point that they wanted to make a cyborgs of you. That's why Elon Musk, for example, wants to put a chip in your brain and everything else, because the truth is that if you have an artificial intelligence, which is a positive, you can teach to do positive in the name of humanity. You can actually rebuild your body by mimicking your molecular structure back to normal. You don't need metal and you don't need a structure like this, so you can become like a robot. So all this is part of the manipulation that is happening. And I know that consciousness is going to win, because cannot self-destruct. And this is what is so important, everybody, to understand. It doesn't matter what the negative side is trying to do. Understand that they're also part of consciousness under the umbrella of ascension. And when you are moving towards the positive fifth dimensional by choosing, they're also part of that. But if they choose not to comply with the new energies, with the protocol of ascension, consciousness itself will sabotage their platform, and eventually their timeline is going to go into extinction. But their goal is to constantly switch the results of positive to negative with whatever happened to DC, distract your attention to something. You went into fear, you drop in the frequency, you actually locking yourself in their timeline. But if you know this knowledge, you're going to understand what happens, and you're going to start maneuvering through action whatever you need to do. That is why, for example, I left the democratic state, not because I hate the people or the governors, because of the manipulation. And I was told from the Council of Nine that the democratic states in the United States are going to look like a communist country. Well, I'm sorry. Look what's happening in DC, in New York City, especially New York City. They try to make this like a smart city, like a cyborg city, connected with the five, you know what I mean, and frequencies and all the stuff. So a lot of people are blinded. They don't see it. If you are watching only mainstream social media, I guarantee you, you've been fed complete wrong information, that it has nothing to do with what's really happening. We won already, but what you're experiencing is the protocol of how we got there. So the destination is already there, but how we got to that point, the players of that game, chess game, will change.
Yeah. And you cover a lot of this in Have Faith, You Are the Quantum Field. And
That's right. And I go through the quantum structure. I'm in front of a whiteboard, and you're going to see
yeah,
very well what's happening, because I go into physics there, which is important for you to understand.
yeah. Yeah, and in particular, I mean, I watched about 48 minutes of it. I just ran out of time. But around the 31-minute mark, you spit out some wisdom that's pretty cool with the board behind you. And, I'm just going to put it in my own words, but what I love about the way you presented it, you're giving, you're giving due to what's out there. You're not ignoring anything. You're simply putting on the table that we are conscious co-creators, that we represent a fractal, that we influence from that point. We influence timelines, and what you're saying is, or at least this is what I got from that part of it, was that we're in a quantum field. We're quantum creators, and it's so important. I guess for instance, what I'm saying is we're always picking a side, whether we think we're not or we think we are. But the thing is you're basically, what you're saying is the individual's declaring what their alignment is, and by doing that, you're negating or even eliminating these timelines that are less graceful and less easy, the ones that we're coming from and the ones that we're done with, basically. But I love what you said, because you put the responsibility on the individual that, this is in your hands. And it really is, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is, because the neutrality, when I talk about neutrality, is not to get involved, but to recognize through neutrality what's really happening. Is almost like a watching a movie. Whatever happens, for example, in DC, whatever happened, there, but don't panic. Hold the neutrality of what you saw, but use that neutrality power of your knowledge, because you can see through the manipulation and take an action after that moment through the reality of whatever you want to do by taking action, except going into fear. Thank you very much. I see your manipulation. That is your choosing. However, I choose to be positive. So I'm going to talk positive. I'm going to watch positive movies. I'm going to take positive action. I'm going to move from that location because I do not consent with what you're doing. I don't hate you. I love you as a consciousness. However, I will not give consent for you to overtake my consciousness,
Yeah.
because I am living being. I'm sovereign being. I'm in a common law now, and I want to create the reality that I am given from God's source, because God I am,
Yeah.
and I am the power.
And I think on that note too, and I think this is something we've all had to contend with, been challenged with, and that is, regardless of who we are, there's a lot of stuff out there. We still have a human aspect that's active, and sometimes, at least for me, I've got to say, you know what? Sometimes I got to turn that off and turn that off. Not that I'm ignoring it, but because I know it's giving me a charge. It might trigger me. It might make me angry. It might make me feel lesser than about something or some other consciousness. I mean, there is something to be said for being cautious and wary and responsible for what you put before yourself, isn't there?
Yes, and that is to play a chess game. You, if you want to succeed, you won't tell your opponent what your moves are. So you have to be clever. We're not talking here get the rifles and start taking your freedom back. There is a way of doing that without being violent and stuff like this, by you doing it by law. And I think this is what is going to happen here. And I promise you that humanity will be freed from the white hats of the military forces.
Yeah. And what about the people? And again, we're all in the same boat. There's no doubt about it. Uh, I've seen some people not from a neutrality of inaction, but it is an alignment. It is a declaration of their alignment through their actions, but they tend to focus. And there's not one way that's perfect. I'm just giving an example, but they tend to focus on their own field, to be in nature, to meditate, to connect, to do what they can to expand and open up their field more. Uh, is that type of scenario building an effective frequency to continue our trajectory into a full transformation on the earth?
It's part of it, because at the same time understand that the positive and negative structure coexist them at the same time through the ascension of the protocol, so you cannot off disengage with the entire planet, but through the process of the changes, because you may go to nature, but you may hear what's happening in Washington DC. You were not there, but you heard about it, so you can actually get upset about that. This is the time when you need to off disengage by understanding, but still engaging in a positive, by you saying something positive, by you holding the ground, or make a video to lift up everybody's spirit. You have to be in the battlefield. In order to win a war, you have to be in the battlefield, but using the chess game, and use it in such a manner so you still there and existing, because this is a co-creation also. You actually could be a one unit of a human being, but you also expanding consciousness to infinite of realities at the same time, to the planet. So if you really want something to change, you change yourself through the positive. But because you're living in a meta structure, you create in a meta structure, you have to take the action with choosing for humanity, so you experience humanity to be free.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it, or memes or posts or videos where they talk about this being a spiritual war, a war on consciousness. I mean, I know we've all had our own journeys and our own evolution, but the more time that goes on, the more I realize that this war, for lack of a better word, is first and foremost happening right here in the space between my etheric eyes. Like there is the ability to influence me, and has been for years and years and years through programming and such. It's happening right here. In other words, I can bring my alignment forth from me first and foremost, and I feel like that's become a greater clarity for myself and others in the latter part of this year, especially as there's become more and more distortion on the global, more chaos on the global level.
Okay, well, I'm going to explain this a little bit from the quantum field. The one particle that you are created is actually expanded to infinity, collapsed to infinity, and you projecting everybody into your field. And that's why you see me. I'm another version of you. However, I'm another version of you in this timeline of reality, for example, fifth dimensional, because that's what we're projecting now. However, there are multiple other timelines above this structure that are resonating in completely different frequency that you don't see. So at the same time, you coexisting as a consciousness, spark of your soul consciousness into another timelines of reality. When we awaken our 12 strain DNA and start learning how to do that, you actually gonna shift and connect with galactic family, with the other versions of yourself. You're gonna download informations the way, for example, I can download from the Pleiadians and the Council of Nine. This is all possible. I'm not more than you, but I'm simply ahead of the game, maybe ahead of the class. So everybody else can learn, but at the same time, I'm learning from them. So all the time, somebody through evolution timelines is learning. The point is here that in the quantum structure, all the parallel realities and timelines, future, past, there's no future and past, everything is in the now. So you can literally call in your consciousness right now that you are in your with your galactic family, and you can shift there and experience this reality. However, there's protocols to get to this point. The point is that we already made it, but right now, as an individual fractal, you experiencing the ascension process because you chose to experience that. Not only that, through consciousness itself, there's also parallel timeline that humanity didn't make it. But what you experience now is the timeline that humanity made it. So the other versions of ourselves, including our galactic family that we end up being our ancestors, end up connecting with us through a different timeline into the timeline for ascension, so we can experience that and create that, because there was also another timeline we didn't make it. So they can tap in through different timelines of reality in the now, in the negative and in the positive, so they can shift the timeline for ascension, because consciousness is possible to do that.
Hmm.
Imagine what we can do. And that's what the extraterrestrial do. That's what the higher councils can do. This is all possible, but it's up to you. Where do you wish to redirect your attention when something is happening? That's why it's important, no matter what happens, for you to hold your ground by understanding the manipulation, so you can shift your emotion and redirect your attention with action to something positive, to keep holding the vibration from the positive.
Yeah.
Because you got to build enough potency of action to shift continuously the vibration into fifth dimensional structure, because the negative side knows all that, and that's why they constantly bombarding you, hijacking your outcome in a positive, the way it happened in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I found that it serves me to stay busy or active, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's chop wood, carry water, or whatever it is. Just something to keep in motion and keep me fresh and kind of not ignore things, but like if I do get a charge, I have to step away because I don't want to put that charge
Mm-hmm.
into the collective. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, over the years, and certainly very much substantiated. And I know we're talking energy, but we have to get specific. Where malevolent ETs have been working with, let's just say, the dark or with the 1% or whatever you want to call it. My question is, from your communion, from your connection with those aspects that you talk with and that you meet with, uh, how much involvement is there from the benevolent ET energies with those things such as white hats or people in positions of power or even all of us on the earth? Is there an effort? Is there a consolidated effort for the benevolent ETs to help us to raise our frequencies? Are they there if we need them? Are they willing to communicate with us? And are they working with individuals of our frequency behind the scenes in government and other organizations?
They said we very much do, you know. Sometimes happens to thought, sometimes there are contacts, contact. Some The way I do it is another way. If it's above very high frequency vibration, they can tap in somebody consciousness, and they can really tell you what they want, or you can have messages. They have not stopped. Actually, they were the ones, like, I think 2010 or 2012. I don't remember when was that video, when they did, but we had like a shield around the planet, like in Star Wars. When they wanted to send a signal, they couldn't send it because it was a shield. We had something like this because negative consciousness opened up a portal into the quantum field and created artificial archon timelines with a parallel realities within the realities. And they were hiding technology. Each reality had a technology created by technology, and it was a layers and layers and layers of all that. That was fundamental to understand that, based on what the extraterrestrial and the finding, understand that we are their pre-ancestors. They had to save us, because whatever is happening in a planet is actually like a ripple effect through the quantum field in the structure, which was actually disturbing the other timelines, because we're all interconnected. Why? Because you are part of that one particle, one consciousness that expands to infinite and collapse to the smallest. So they had to do something about it. And through the other timelines, they have to drop in souls the way I was dropping. After 8 years old, I was dropping. There was a switch of souls, and I came from Pleiadian family, because somebody needed to download the information that I was meant to do to download. You have the quantum structure, and that's your actually ticket out. when you know how to do that, because nobody can manipulate you this way. Anything you see in the social media, they know that they can project that frequency, vibration, sound in your consciousness, and you start vibrating in their frequency. So, but when you know the quantum structure of manifestation, then you know what they're doing. You can shut that program down and maneuver yourself cleverly through the system, so you can constantly keep it up with a new frequency. And once this happens and you reach a certain point of vibration, then the ETs and the high consciousness is able to tune in into that channel with you like a phone call. And all of a sudden you start receiving guidance and information. Even sometimes in the beginning you may not realize, but you're going to find yourself that you had a thought maybe not to go here, but to go to the other place. And all of a sudden 2 days later you realize that there were riots over there and you were clueless what was happening. I had a similar situations over and over again like that. So this is how they work. What they were frustrated with was the fact that for some reason we're hard-headed and brainwashed to such an extent that reason doesn't matter anymore. For example, what was happening with the virus, I mean, all the medical reasoning is out of the window. Nobody was thinking what is really virus. Nobody read anything about it. Nobody educated himself. And I think this was the goal from the negative side, to be implemented in the school system. That's why you had a common core, which was only testing, testing, testing. Nobody was thinking. Everything that was in the social media of completely inappropriate behavior from the stars and the movie stars and the dancers. There was no ladies and gentlemen for the kids, nobody to teach them. So the whole society of generation turned into this completely, I would say, not intelligent. That's the truth. And the parents are busy working. Nobody sees what they're teaching your kids at school. And now we end up being with whatever is happening with the gender. Which is nothing wrong, but nobody realized that behind this gender, they implemented certain GMO foods and certain roundabout. For example, when you spray in your lawn, that's proven from a medical doctor. Look up to it. At the moment goes into your lawn, goes into the stream system, into your water, and actually changes. It's proven changes on the frog, male to female, and vice versa. So don't be surprised all of a sudden when one day your child comes in and say, well, I want to be a boy and is a girl. So this is what the agenda is behind it, because that was connected with depopulation protocol, including you cannot have kids anymore in a second generation after you eat GMO food. Not to mention gastrointestinal issues and everything, cancer developing.
Yeah.
So I would suggest to everybody to look Seeds of Death documentary video, because a lot of truth is there. And once you start educating yourself, you're gonna understand everything. So yes, they were very frustrated with the fact that we see how the most of the stuff make no sense, whatever, for example, the negative side was doing, and yet you blindly following orders without thinking.
Yeah.
That was their frustration.
Yeah. So, and this is interesting too to me, is like there's obvious. You just went through it. There's obvious evidence of the physical manifestation of the influence of the malevolent ETs behind those things we see on the superficial, such as countries and militaries and organizations and whatever.
Mhm.
Um, is there the same element of physical manifestation having occurred or that will occur that's stemming from the benevolent ET energies that will counter things such as this? Or is it all based on us aligning with the higher frequency?
Well, they just told me all gloves are off, because when we reached, for a while, I know there were groups that did not want to get involved, because of the way the primitive thinking of our society, and exactly what I gave you example. When you see the manipulation, why you keep following and why you fighting between each other, nobody's thinking. But we reach a certain percentage of awareness that they literally got involved, because when you reach a certain percentage of awareness, now as a percentage of society, you want to free yourself. then is right from consciousness itself to get involved. And permission was given for the extraterrestrial groups and high consciousness, whoever wished to be involved, to start freeing humanity, because it's incredible overtaking, because you're not dealing only with the human race to waken up, but also with the benevolent beings that were overtaken. But even if they were benevolent beings, understand that they know the protocol of consciousness. So some of them back off. What you're dealing with is the lords of our society that completely off disengage with the illusion of the reality of compassion. And for them, when you accumulate so much negative in your consciousness, by taking over, by killing, by, you know, what they were doing with our kids and the blood and everything that was happening, you accumulate a resonance that your consciousness vibration in a matrix vibrates on. And the only way that you can exist in, for example, in a three-dimensional reality waveform, in order for you to go through ascension process, you have to do something completely heroic in the name of humanity, and to start feeling the compassion, which through consciousness itself, I was told from the ETs, will be given to these negative structures. For example, you were manipulated, you were trapped in a family lineage that they were doing stuff. That will be given an opportunity to you. And if you have no fear and really start doing something for humanity, you would be giving some kind of a they told me consciousness is going to plaster some kind of a holographic reality to that human being. So they will be able, through synchronicity, which we don't know what type of synchronicity, from where and whom, to be able to free themselves if they take the action. But you have to take the action. And then you're going to be in help through synchronicities, through the process, the way I was helped. I told you last year in the beginning of March, don't get out of the country until 2023, because it's going to take that long until everything finished. I said 25th, they told me book everybody. Why? Because through the donations, I was able to survive. I had no idea that this was happening, but they wouldn't tell me absolutely everything, but they were guiding me. So that will happen even for the people from the negative side, if they want to move forward. Through synchronicity, things will happen. And they told me they're going to give them a new reality, which will lead towards ascension, which is a hologram, you know. And that is going to be in the individual basis, because everybody is creating their own ascension protocol through the process. You know, that's quantum we're talking here. Each particle has its own reality, own world, own ascension protocol. But one is going to go faster, one is going to go slower, depending on your resonance.
But ultimately, what you're saying is predicated on our desire and on our on whether or not we actualize what we know in the highest level of alignment that we know. I mean, in other words, they're not going to do it for us. We've got to take some action in our own field of energy, in our own experience, that does serve humanity, like you said.
Yes, you're going to be also tested to the process, you know, because they can tell you anything. They gave me all this knowledge, but I could have sat back and do nothing. It was my choice. But because consciousness has to survive, somebody else would have come up with that, maybe download it and do something about it. It will never stop. It always, because it has to preserve itself.
Yes. I wonder too, just from a point of curiosity, and maybe more than curiosity, it certainly, things are ramping up. There's no doubt about it. Everything's becoming louder and louder. And that's not just the so-called bad, but also the good. Although I think the good, let's just say, or the light, has been more of a groundswell. You know, individuals like yourself all over the world, people that come on this show that have been doing grid work for years, or been other type of etheric repairs, or just different things on behalf of humanity, but not by conventional 3D ways. I guess what I'm getting at is, do you think, or let me ask it this way, why hasn't any light worker leader of any certain level of public awareness, haven't they come out and talked about the things that you talk about, that we talk about on this show, and so many people around the world, these connections with the benevolent light beings and galactic family. The other things that have been hidden, many of these subjects, much of this information, data, and code is available if you really look and research. But why hasn't anyone stepped up and said, "Hey, I am a star seed. This is what's going on. This is what we're contending with, but this is what we're doing."
To be honest, I've seen a lot of people stepping up with that probably lately, more than ever. Some of them perhaps had a personal situation, so some of them were in fear. There's a lot of reasons why people may not be able to do that. Some of them could be told not to say anything, the way I was told not to say anything until 2014. Even with all that information, not even to speak a word of what I knew. So it's a different reasons, but I, to be honest, have seen a big jump of people waking up and really trying to do something about it. I wish they did it earlier, but I think we should be giving the chance to everybody to express whatever they time. It's never too late, basically. It's never too late, because if that person doesn't do it, somebody else will be picked up from consciousness to finish the job.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing too is I've noticed something really interesting. It obviously there in America there is a huge bias, let's just say, in the mainstream media. Uh, it's so obvious. It's even if it doesn't matter who you support or don't support, but you can see that it's just like a like a one man fighting against a million people. And I don't mean to use the term man, just one energy versus this big energy and the physicality that's attacking all the time. But one of the things that I've noticed over the last 2 3 days is there's stuff being put out that's starting to push the other way. That's starting to say, hey, this happened over here from these forces that we've been propping up. Uh, and I guess where I'm going with this one is there really, or let me use a past tense, has there really been one group in control here? Because it looks to me like there's different factions, like there's
No,
many.
there are multiple
Yeah,
groups, and some of them have been fighting between each other for
yeah,
centuries. Because this type of consciousness recognize power, only power, and there's no compassion. Even the old children are sent to certain schools, so they're not very close to each other. They're taught in a different way. They go through satanic rituals. They taught that way. A lot of
yeah,
brainwashing. Keep in mind that if you're in satanic family, the firstborn is offered to the Baphomet somehow. I mean, it's just crazy stuff beyond
mhm,
our imagination that they were doing. If people want to know more, they can look into it. What do you do? Stuff like this. I've listened to a lot of testimonies of people that were in satanic family and what the family did. It's out there. I'm not suggesting you go into, but in order for you to transform the negative, you have to know what the negative is.
yeah,
And if you put your hand in the sand all the time and don't want to face it, or not to know what is adrenochrome and what they were doing and what is doing this in the body and why they were using it to keep themselves young and healthy, but in what way they were using it and what they were doing to extract that blood from a child is just shocking. So that's why you have to take a stand to that. There's a lot of groups that they were fighting with each other, and they control each other through information, through power. If you are friends with me through crime, then I have a power over you too,
mhm,
because I know that you're not gonna tell what I did, what crime we committed together. And this is what's really happening there. This is no friendship based on compassion
right.
and care. This is based on power. This type of consciousness does not recognize they have so much money they could survive through generation and generation just from the money that they collected. It's not about money here. This is about energetic power. And so we're dealing with a different type of consciousness. Does not recognize compassion, does not recognize the heart in the human. You are simply a vessel for their survival. You're their battery,
Hmm.
and they're the parasites. And sometimes the parasites not only the parasitic way of living. So this is not a judgment, is their survival. But when it's time for ascension, you will have the choice, even as a parasite, to stop leeching off
Hmm.
and to find another way of clearing everything out for new existence, new ascension for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you continue the same way, it's not going to be possible, and eventually you're going to self-destruct. How? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is why it's necessary for us to do whatever we need to do, because it's time to move forward.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, and I'm glad that you did in regard to the parasite. We had an incident 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I can't remember anything anymore. I think it was 2 years ago in Hawaii. There was a 2 3 day period where we were um, the short grays were the zeta reticuli were in our field. And one of the things that happened was, and we were in Hawaii, and they kind of passed through. And when they were like migrating off the earth, this group was anyway, what they said was that they were, I want to say they said they were organic AI. In other words, they were AI, they were controlled and so on, and that they wanted to know about the soul. And the reason I say that is because of what you just said, that this creation, or this group of creations that we ran across, they still wanted to choose a different path. They did not want to stay on the path they were on, which is really kind of the same thing that you're saying right now in this example about the parasitic. Um, the other thing that I was wondering about too was, since I would say probably around the first week of December, there seems to have been an uptick in kind of a soft disclosure thing, right? Like more information coming out from official sources of these videos of UFOs. We had that prime minister, or I'm sorry, the retired ex head of the space program in Israel. They came out and said we've been in contact with ETs. We have a base on on Mars and that type of thing. And it's kind of interesting to me because obviously people have talked about they're going to do a soft disclosure at some point, and then I have to question, if it's coming out of the state of Israel or coming out of the U.S. Pentagon or whatever. You kind of have to question that. But I guess what I'm asking you is, do you see this uptick in disclosure as being a kind of a preparation for like a Project Bluebeam fake ET invasion, or do you feel like it's legitimate coming from the white hat frequency within these organizations?
Well, let me put it this way: those two realities are running simultaneously. There are probabilities.
Hmm.
And to the point that if you're running on a fifth dimensional, no matter what happens, you're going to recognize it and not being caught up in a manipulation, or you simply won't see it.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
this,
truth.
yeah, I like that, and I resonate with that. And you talked about this earlier, where as an individual, we can get to a certain point where we have a certain holographic overlay that is a different reality, and there are just certain things that we're just not going to see because they're no longer in our field.
Yeah, because we coexisting at the same time, or you're going to be in a different place, or you're going to see it and you're going to go, that doesn't make sense to me. Oh, who knows what's happening right now? Or you all of a sudden ignore it and you don't get to the fear the way they try to do in Washington, D.C. right now. Actually, in Washington, D.C., the two timelines work together, one of the positive, one of the negative. And we recognize that, because don't tell me that the most secure building in US they
Yeah.
can simply walk in. I mean, it was laughable when we have previously different groups from Oregon, Portland, that literally destroyed the city, but that was a peaceful protesters.
Right.
I mean, it's laughable. Anybody with the right mind and really uh, clear thinking will see through the veil of the manipulation.
Yeah.
When you ignore these facts, but you continue in pointing fingers to the people that telling you the truth, and you just do it because of you being loyal to a party. This is not about a party. This is about good and evil.
Yeah.
So pick the good, not the party. And that's how you get lost in translation when you start fighting for a party, and it's not about the party, it's about the person that is going after the human trafficking, is about the person that is trying to show you what's really happening, did not put anybody in war for 4 years, and end up doing so much, bringing everything back in US and all the stuff, stop the money that were coming into foreign countries for. We have to fix this country first. You have to fix yourself first in order to help others. And that country was completely, they were stealing from this country and depleted, because the only way you can destroy United States of America is from within.
There's been a lot of talk over the years about the cyclical nature of at least this particular universe. And what I'm talking about is, for instance, like a 26,000 year cycle. I'm talking about Atlantis, Lemuria, where our consciousness did not keep up with technology, and we ran out of time, and there was a reset kind of thing. There's also been talk about how we were on the cusp or the precipice of an opportunity in terms of transformation and possibility and potential that we've never had before, at least not on the earth, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. What I'm getting at is the overcoming, to put it in a smaller term, overcoming death. Do you feel like that we are in a field of opportunity and potential that we might be able to move beyond that without physically dying? In other words, that the realm itself could actually transform, just as the body's transforming carbon to light body. Do you feel that the collective realm, we have an opportunity, a real opportunity, to be able to transform this realm from, let's say, a denser environment, a more physical environment, into a more vital environment, such as heaven on earth?
Well, this is possible to transformation of the molecular structure of the body when you going through complete detox. Consciousness already has to understand this type of knowledge, understand how the quantum field works. That's why quantum manifestation is so important for you to understand. When you start doing the diet, you start flushing off everything from the body, and the spinning of the molecular structure actually is slowly and gradually increases the resonance. Once you increase the resonance, and you literally at that time you're probably going to be connected also with your family, galactic family, or your guidance. They can lead you through the process to the point that you reach almost breatharianism. I'm not suggesting to absolutely anyone to try that diet. You can look at my detox protocol. It's the way the hybrids gave it to me. But do not try anything only with water, especially for diabetics. It has to be through a doctor's supervision. But the protocol for that is you can reach breatharianism. And once you reach or only water diet, your body actually to that level can hold the vibration, and you don't have to eat. And eventually, when the body with the consciousness reach specific resonance, you actually can shift the realities to the point that you don't have a decay in the matrix of your reality, to the point that you won't die. You're simply moving from one reality. What you're doing, actually, you're going to create the portals that is from the heart. The heart is holding the codes for the new portals. And you actually gradually shifting, and you may have a contact, and you can start bilocating and shifting reality, so you don't die. You simply shift from one reality to a new one and continue. But this reality that is here also continues of another version. So you split up in two realities at the same time, but instead you see in the planet Earth, you see the extraterrestrial family. And you can start shifting back and forth, until in the end, the planet Earth reality, your hologram is going to stay frozen, and you permanently continue. And however, your family or everybody else can reprint you in their reality if they wish for you to do so. And that is for galactic ascension. People that are ready for their galactic family, they're going to be taught similar protocols.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last night when we connected, and we talked very little, and then we kind of did our own thing, and it was a very intense thing. And I was telling the previous guest about it. I moved into a space I'd never been before. Like I'd never been to that dimension. I mean, it was something I just hadn't had the frequency, or maybe I had the fear or whatever, but something happened. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because I was then being told, and it was beyond human words, of words such as reprogramming or programming. But basically, what I was being told by these tall blue light beings was to begin to use affirmations to change my molecular structure, to change my atomic structure, which was I am a star seed. I come from the galactic frequency. I come from beyond that, and certain things, and I can't remember them all, but to start to build the true identity, or the greater or more expansive identity of what I really am. And the reason they were telling me this is they said, if you do this, and as you do this, your ability to see beyond visible light will become more expansive, not just in what you see, but in what you hear and what you feel. Does any of that resonate with anything that you've pulled in?
Yeah, this is how they taught me. You actually can go into your DNA. I had the hybrids. They were instructed me, and you can go into your DNA and switch the DNA code in your body. And this is how I end up in a DNA water, from food. And yeah, I felt it because I decided to eat again. So now I can go back again. I can hold the frequency. But I do not recommend this to anybody until they totally connect. You have to take it slowly, because the molecules have to slowly but steadily transform into resonant more and more and more to the spinning, so it doesn't come out of orbit, because if it comes out of orbit you can get sick.
Yeah. There's,
Very important.
thank you. There's so much, there's so much information out there, whether we're looking at it from the human only level, or the multi level, or whatever. And it can get a little confusing and a little cumbersome at times. So, a really basic question I want to ask you on behalf of all my brothers and sisters and myself is, we know that we know in so many words that it's an inside job. Okay. We know that there's an importance uh, in terms of keeping our focus on the kingdom within, right? But there's also this very strong pull of the external that's even getting louder. You can go find whatever you want out there, whatever your belief is. You can go find stuff to support it, or vice versa. So I guess my question is, how would you best recommend to people to find that middle of the road and not be pulled too far over, but to keep your eyes open of the external and be aware of the external? But what would you recommend to people, how to keep that balance, staying focused on yourself, but still observing everything else? Is there a way that you could guide people on that?
If you stay in the positive, no matter what's happening, you have to stay in a positive. I cannot tell what everybody can experience, but remember that no matter what you experience, train yourself to shift your emotion, thoughts, and action into the positive. Redirect your attention into the positive, because that is what you're going to project as a frequency. And this is what is going to be the reality of the frequency that you're going to experience the next momentum.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to create as you go.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. Very cool. You're so down to earth. That's why I love watching your videos and talking to you.
Thank you.
And you're also funny. But
Yes.
so let us know. I mean, what do you got going on? I mean, I know that you mentioned it earlier. Oh, and by the way, I don't want to disregard this. Somebody asked a question, and you did mention it, but maybe if you could also include this. They asked a question where they could find that diet. You had mentioned something about, I think, one of the videos that you did, but where can we find you? I know Harmonic Reactor on YouTube, website, and also, again, to their question about the diet.
The diet protocol you're going to find on my YouTube channel, The Harmonic Reactor. And you're going to scroll down and you're going to see a sub channel there, and it says detox protocol. Marina Jacobi detox. If you just put Marina Jacobi detox, my video should come out on YouTube. And follow the protocol to a T. Do not mix fruits and vegetables when you detox because it's going to ferment. And if it ferments, you lose nutrients. That's why a lot of vegans lose nutrients and they didn't know that. So make sure you don't mix it. Have 1 hour in between. If you have fruit, 1 hour later you can eat the greens. The greens, if they're bitter from the protocol you have, they have to be bitter in order to flush your body out. Do not take more than a cup in the beginning when you start drinking because it's so potent in frequency and very powerful in nutrients. You may get nauseous. So make sure you train your body to take little by little until you have 2 cups at the time. And the protocol is up to 10 cups, 6 of them in green juicing, and 4 of them is on fruits. 1 hour in between if you want to take them. And if you're hungry, you do shakes of banana and water, or you do another shake. If you just had a green shake and you're still hungry, you can do spinach and avocado and water, blend it. But the juicing is the most important because the juice cuts off the program of your stomach to process it so you don't lose extra energy and nutrients. The juicing will go directly into your bloodstream, more potency. That's why you don't want to do shakes. Shakes is not even that potent compared with the juicing. The juices is more potent in energetic feel, more potent in nutrients. That's why you do the juicing, not the shakes. But if you're still hungry after you juice, which is going to happen, do the shake as much as you can. You can do 20 shakes a day as long as is you have the juicing protocol in. And you'll see how all of a sudden, within a 10 days period of time, the first 10 days is going to be very, very challenging. That's why I'm failing my diet, because the third day and I end up cooking for somebody and here it goes, I'm eating again. It has to be completely 10 days and you're going to switch, your frequency is going to switch and you're not going to feel hungry.
Yeah. Well, that's a challenge. People like us that have a last name that ends in a vowel, we like to eat, the ethnic. So, okay, last question. Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful, beloved, brave sister. Um, just, you know, from your own perspective, as the individual goes, so goes the collective. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? I mean, I know none of us can really be sure, but like, how do you feel things are going from your perspective, the trajectory of Marina Jacobi and the energy that you bring to the table? Where do you see yourself in 6 months?
I have to complete, and that will be my galactic family contact.
Mm. Contact?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because that's what came through. It's been coming through, but last night it came through big.
There's a contact that is telepathic that always happening, but you have to have a physical contact.
Yeah.
Physical contact when it's with your galactic family is above the fifth dimensional structure. So you completely have to mutate your body structure and consciousness to be able to even hold the vibrational sequences of that new reality.
Yeah.
And that is done through the heart structure, the molecular structure of your body.
Yeah, I think that's what happened last night because I went into this, I don't even know what to call it, but I went into this level and I looked for them, I could feel them. And that's one of the things they had told me in the last week or so was that as your fears are removed and some other stuff, that the connection and contact will take on more and more and more of a physicality.
That's
and
right.
will be done while you are consciously awake, as opposed to say being in dream state or even in a say a meditative dimensional kind of thing. This would actually just be like we're talking.
Yeah, to bring the body into that state, you have to go through diet protocols. You have to, because your body has to be on specific, the molecular structure of your body's got to be in specific silica and crystallized structure, which is a different type of frequency. You have to mutate basically your DNA.
Have you come across recently or any time these I would call them tall blue light beings? I'm not sure because I haven't asked. I'm not sure if there's a galactic.
No, my son dream about it.
Okay.
Yeah, my son, he saw himself as one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I've talked to some other people that
but
have.
not a being. He saw himself as a ET. He said he opened a portal, went into this crystal city. It was unbelievable. The whole dream was unbelievable. So
Wow.
he was like an alien.
Wow. Let's get them on. Hey, I
Yeah,
appreciate
I'm
it.
not surprised.
Where did you move? Just what, one state over? Did you move to New Jersey or did you move somewhere else?
No, I moved in the south, and
Really?
I just simply knew what was happening because I was told that the democratic states gonna look like a communist states, and it's already look at what's happening in New York City.
Well, I'm in
It's
Arkansas. Are you that far south?
No, I'm quite a bit closer to that area.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I
Yeah.
love you. I appreciate you, and I'm saying that on behalf of everybody that's here. I always enjoy collaborating with you. I look forward to many, many, many more collaborations if you'll have me. And I just want to say I'm really happy for you and your family to be able to make the move. And all blessings to you and yours. And until the next time.
Thank you very much. Anytime. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Marina. Bye bye.